CPPCC members put forward innovative proposals aiming to create jobs, spur entrepreneurism, and improve rural areas. China says the country's stable economic development will play a vital role in battling the global financial crisis. Former serfs join hands with a future generation of Tibetans in celebrating half a century of democratic reforms. And China joins the world in honoring women on their special day. Welcome to NewsHour on CCTV International. I'm Annie Fu in Beijing. China has been soliciting political advisors' suggestions on its development since the opening of this year's CPPCC session on Tuesday. Now, at Sunday's plenary meeting of China's top political advisory body, the CPPCC members made several proposals ranging from tackling the global financial crisis to improving people's well-being. Li Sheng reports.
A total of 16 CPPCC members made proposals during Sunday's plenum at this year's CPPCC session. Xu Zhenhuan is one of those who believe creating more jobs is the government's priority.
I suggest the government further develops the service sector, encourages the development of small and medium-sized enterprises, and supports migrant workers returning to their hometowns to start their own businesses. Companies should also take their social responsibilities seriously, which means maintaining and creating jobs.
Meanwhile, improving the country's medical system and the welfare of the people was another topic at Sunday's meeting. CPPCC member Liu Xiaofeng's proposal contains both aspects. He said the government should pay more attention to improving the welfare of millions of doctors working in rural areas, who provide medical services for the country's rural population of roughly 800 million.
According to a survey conducted in 2007, nearly 90% of medical staff working in rural areas earned less than 1,000 yuan or $150 per month. Over 40% of them earned less than 500 yuan per month. And most of those doctors are not covered in the country's pension scheme.
Other members gave suggestions on the 2010 Shanghai World Expo, food safety, and China's science and technology development. Li Xiang, CCTV.
Now, within the context of the global economic slowdown, China's development is a pressing issue all around the world. Minister of Commerce Chen Deming said on Saturday that the stable development of the Chinese economy would greatly contribute to the world. Zhang Yaqing has more.
The minister says another Chinese delegation of business and industry leaders left on Saturday for 4 European countries to pursue investment and economic cooperation. Led by the Ministry of Commerce, the delegation comes on the heels of February's procurement delegation. It's heading for the same 4 destinations: Germany, Switzerland, Spain, and Britain. Chen Deming says now is the right time for Chinese enterprises to go to the world while objectively watching the global situation. When asked his view on certain foreign media outlets saying Chinese enterprises are seeking profits by merging resource enterprises, Chen said he doesn't think it's a problem.
The purchasing of resources by Chinese enterprises helps lower the global market's resource prices and stabilize the situation in many poorer countries. China needs resources, but we don't simply buy them, we develop them. For example, in Zambia, none of our workers in the copper mines there lost their jobs, while most copper mines owned by Western companies are now closed. We've been warmly welcomed and supported by many developing countries.
Talking about China's role in the global recession, Chen Deming says China's rapid development has raised the world's expectations of China.
China will develop itself further to contribute more. And China is not an all-powerful kung fu panda who can save the world. The country's stable economic development will be our biggest contribution to the world.
As for questions about the issuing of coupons in many places around China, the minister says his department is doing research and assessment on the move. He says it's a positive step within the limits of local government, but says the ministry will not apply the policy to the whole country before the results of the assessment are known. Zhang Yajing, CCTV.
Well, overcoming the financial crisis is at the top of everyone's minds these days. Our reporter Wang Mangmang spoke to CPPCC members from Hong Kong who survived the Asian financial crisis a decade ago for their ideas on what measures the central government can take.
These CPPCC members from Hong Kong are not new to the political sessions. They brainstorm 10 proposals on the nation's development, ranging from culture to the environment. But their major concern is what China can do to deal with the financial meltdown. Dr. Gunter Gao proposes using forex reserves to buy overseas companies with good credit that go bankrupt during the crisis.
The world is familiar with things that are made in China, but we need to have things that are created in China. To increase this competitiveness, we need advanced experience. Buying foreign capital is a good way to expand China's presence and influence in the global market, and also a way to attract financial talents.
Amy Chen prefers something less risky. Her interest is in developing a green economy. She proposes the country transform to a low-pollution, high-tech production structure, which is crucial for sustainable development.
The environment is a price we can't afford to pay. Instead of sticking to an energy-consuming production method, we can develop an economy based on new energy resources. A green economy is our responsibility to our own people and the world. And of course, we need to equip our workers with new skills so that they won't lose their jobs.
Xi Jinping's proposal takes Chen's a step further with a specific example.
I propose to promote the use of LED lights on urban roads and buildings. A single light bulb is small, but imagine how much we could save with a 1.3 billion population. I think we should save as we develop. The crisis gives us a good reason not to consume our future.
The members still remember how the central government helped Hong Kong get through another difficult time back in 1997. They say the help was both domestic and regional. Having survived the Asian economic tsunami a decade ago, CPPCC members from Hong Kong are more confident about the central government's role in dealing with the current crisis. Their proposals focus on the country's economic development strategy. At the same time, their suggestions aim to raise China's international profile as a responsible nation. Wang Mangmang, CCTV, Beijing. The central government says it will increase the supply of affordable housing for low-income groups, believing reports that while they approve of the direction of the policy, some lawmakers and advisors have differing opinions about the current plan.
Building more affordable houses for low-income residents is a target Premier Wen Jiabao has set in this year's government work report. The Premier also promised to solve the housing problems for 7.5 million low-income urban households over the next 3 years. The government also aims to tackle the accommodation problems for rural migrants working in cities. Some NPC deputies say the best way to solve the housing problem for low-income group is to rent rather than sell houses to them.
I very much agree that we solve the housing problems for the poor, but I am against developing the government-subsidized low-cost housing because selling such homes involves the transfer of property ownership from the state to individuals. To some extent, it's a loss of national property. I think building low-rent housing on a large scale is the best way to solve these housing problems.
Others agree. One CPPCC member says Beijing should readjust its affordable housing plans.
Beijing plans to construct 8 million square meters of affordable housing this year, but only 500,000 square meters is low rent. A large majority of the homes are meant to be sold. This ratio isn't reasonable. I think low-rent housing should account for at least 90% of all planned construction.
Other members suggest the government policies should differ according to specific segments of the population.
Classify, the population. For instance, young people should not have their own house. They should rent house. And low-income groups should not, buy their own house, and should probably government support low-rent houses. But in the last 2 years, it seems, the whole atmosphere to encourage everybody to buy a house.
As some delegates have pointed out, policies concerning affordable homes still need further improvement to fully support low-income families. But as government continues ramping up investments in this area, it will undoubtedly change the dynamics of the housing market and make it more equitable. Liu Ying, CCTV, Beijing.
Well, an official from China's manned space project says the country plans to launch 2 more spacecraft, the Shenzhou 8 and Shenzhou 9. Meanwhile, a new round of astronaut selections has begun. Zhang Jianqi, the deputy chief commander of the project and also an NPC deputy, revealed in an interview that the country plans to launch the unmanned Shenzhou 8 in 2011. And it's hoped that the manned Shenzhou 9 spacecraft will be launched that same year. Zhang says the crew for the mission will consist of 5 to 7 people, with perhaps the country's first female astronaut. He says the next step is the country's first space docking.
We will launch an unmanned space module laboratory into orbit as early as the end of 2010. The module is then expected to dock with Shenzhou 8 in 2011.
Now, for more in-depth analysis on the annual CPPCC and NPC sessions, we're joined by Dialogue's Yang Rui and our current affairs commentator, Dr. Gao Zhikai. Welcome.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to take a closer look at the agenda of both the NPC and the CPPCC. Shall we say a big hello to all women Chinese foreigner alike on this particular day, because this is the Women's Festival, right?
Absolutely. All the best wishes. Yes.
And let's take a quick look at the following statistics. 45.4% of China's total employed population goes to women. And the female deputies make up 21% of all the participants of the NPC and 17% of the CPPCC. But the most serious problem with China at this moment, I'm afraid, is that we have the unnatural boy-girl birth ratio of about 118 against 118 males against 100 females due to sex-specific abortions every year. Mr. Gao, yes, we had several major events at the Great Hall of the People. Can you tell us briefly the agenda?
Well, I think for yesterday and for today, because it's during the weekend, I think the delegates are mostly still in their group discussions. And but we still have 4 major press conferences, 3 or 4 major press conferences. For yesterday, the most important one was the press conference conducted by the Chinese Foreign Minister Yang Jiechi, which lasted for about 2 hours, which covered all the major issues of the Chinese foreign policy and diplomacy. And then it's very extraordinary because in the afternoon we had a press conference by 5 university presidents. This is quite extraordinary because I don't think I've ever seen such a press conference together held by the 5 university presidents before. And this is mainly in the context of creating jobs for the college graduates, because now we have 6 million college graduates who are seeking jobs. And then this morning there was another important press conference by a leader from Sichuan province who talked about the disaster relief as a result of the major earthquake in Sichuan. So I think all these things are attempts to make greater transparency, to make things known to people in China as well as in the world.
In addition to the press conference, which is happening at this moment by Mr. Wei Hong, Senior Governor of Sichuan, about the post-disaster reconstruction, we also have an ongoing plenary session, which is the third plenary session of the second National Committee of the 11th CPPCC at the Great Hall of the People. And tomorrow morning, Mr. Wu Bangguo, the top legislator, will deliver a work report on behalf of the Standing Committee of the second plenum of the 11th NPC. But let me take a close look at the challenges lying ahead in the job market, particularly for university graduates. I believe this is not good timing for them to graduate because of the worsening financial crisis. Only 35% of the university graduates found jobs last year, according to a survey conducted in 11 cities in China. And parents, ironically, are urged by some school authorities to find jobs for their children through their guanxi. Do you know what guanxi means for the Chinese?
Well, right now, I think for the college graduates, not only they themselves are very desperately seeking whatever jobs that are available, but their parents and also relatives are also very desperate, trying their best to help them. And in China, guanxi or relationships are so important. So actually, for example, even in my personal case, I've received many calls from different people, friends, or referrals who want me to give advice as to how to make sure that their sons or daughters can find jobs. So this is really getting worse, I think. Yeah.
Victor, I'm afraid the current severity of the job market exposed to the very vulnerable underbelly or soft underbelly of the Chinese economy, because we don't have the sufficient service industry to enable university graduates to find good jobs. For example, service industry accounts for 64% of the world's economy on average, and in developing countries, service industry accounts for 45% of their individual economy. In our country, take the period between the first and the third quarter of 2007 as an example. The government's input in this segment only accounts for 46.8% compared to the fiscal input into other segments of the national economy in China. So service industry or knowledge-based service industry should obviously be given more priority on the agenda of Premier Wen Jiabao in the remaining years of his government.
Yes, of course. And I carefully listened to the press conference by the 5 university presidents, and I really sympathize with what they have been doing and the points they've made. But actually, there's one point I think we need to emphasize. This is mainly because the Chinese college education is mostly tilted towards education. It's not tilted with a postgraduate work. So I think actually there is one thing which can be done, that is even during the 4 years of college education, attention needs to be paid as to how to give the college students enough work skills or enough exposure as to how they will need to deal with the postgraduate world. Because many college graduates are actually not very well equipped once they need to walk out of the door of the university and once they need to really, engage the world as a worker, as a professional, etc. So I think this is something missing in our 4-year college education in China.
One of the most important questions raised by journalists Chinese Front at yesterday afternoon's press conference, which was hosted in favor of 5 university presidents, was whether more money would be appropriated by the central authorities for a rise of the salaries for teachers of both the primary and the secondary schools. I mean, this is indeed a daunting task. Perhaps next we should take a look at the post-disaster relief and reconstruction work in Sichuan, which was deadly hit by an 8th magnitude earthquake that left nearly 70,000 people dead last year. Here again, I'd like to take a closer look at the statistics. I'm afraid 130. Premier Wen Jiabao said in his government work report that 130 billion yuan additional fund will be appropriated to assist the rebuilding there in Sichuan. But all in all, 1.7 trillion yuan is needed, and there is still 1.3 trillion missing. I mean, this is very embarrassing. And Premier Wen asks the governments in quick-hit areas to complete the reconstruction work in 2 years, 1 year ahead of the scheduled time. This is indeed a very embarrassing priority for Mr. Wei Hong, senior governor, who hosted the press conference yesterday afternoon. But he does expect more favorable policies to be granted by the central authorities in order to undertake the very demanding job there.
Yes, for the Wenchuan earthquake disaster relief, I think 2 points I want to make. One is that the scale and the magnitude of the disaster itself makes the post-disaster relief work all the more important and paramount. And in this regard, the Chinese government has already earmarked 1 trillion renminbi yuan for the purpose of disaster relief. And all the provinces, all the cities in China have been mobilized to provide help to the disaster region. And also, millions of the Chinese people, as well as friends in other countries, have donated money, materials, etc., which have been crucially important in the disaster relief. However, the other thing which I also want to emphasize is that because of the financial crisis hitting China's export-oriented economy, according to the government statistics, about 20 million migrant workers have been laid off. And Sichuan province is a very large province. Its population is close to 100 million people. And because of the lower level of living standards over there, many people actually are from Sichuan. The migrant workers are from Sichuan. And if they are laid off, they have nowhere to go back to Sichuan. And this will add pressure on the local disaster relief work.
I think one of the scathing questions raised by not only the people's deputies but journalists who are very demanding about the accuracy, about the abuse of power, would focus on whether all the relief funds, all the government's budget would be carried out in a sound and a safe way, so that no abuse of power could take place. And last year, 8,400 construction projects kicked off, including 2,800 schools, and fortunately, and 1,167 hospitals were also included. The good news is that 97% of the quake-affected enterprises have resumed work. This is very important to guarantee full employment, right?
Yeah. One point of caution I want to make is that while the disaster relief is of such a paramount importance, and there is all the need to make all the disaster relief work completed in great haste. However, on the other hand, there is also very important consideration, that is, whether we can avoid, building the houses in a traditional way, whether we can leapfrog to the forefront, whether we can introduce green technology or sustainable way of building these houses and environmentally sufficient way of building these houses and factories back. So this is a major challenge, and I hope the local government and all the construction companies involved will take this into serious consideration, so that they can achieve two good benefits in one stroke, rather than only just to rebuild and then the newly built buildings are still efficiently, energy speaking.
Victor, I'm afraid by the end of this Focus of the Day segment, we have to remind our viewers that Shanghai is drumming up social publicity for the Expo 2010, and 185 countries and 46 international organizations have got registered for the participation. The good news is that the organizational committee of Shanghai tells the media that none of those who have applied for the attendance have decided to quit due to the financial crisis, including Iceland, which is trapped in the economic deep freeze. It also insists that it will go ahead with the scheduled participation. But back to you, Annie.
Thank you very much, Yang Rui and Dr. Gao Zhikai. Well, during this year's NPC and CPPCC sessions, we've got a special series for you, Street Talks. Tian Wei has visited hospitals, schools, supermarkets, and parks to explore the everyday concerns of ordinary Chinese. And today she heads for the Olympic Stadium to see how people there view their country's image.
Looking around me, one could easily tell that China is changing very fast. With that kind of change, there's enormous international attention on this country and its people, just as being illustrated by this year's press conference given by Chinese Foreign Minister Yang Jiechi at the National People's Congress. But how do common Chinese think about the rising status of this country on the international stage, its present and its future? Let's go and find out. 问一问几个简单的问题。想打听一下，您觉得啊，中国人觉得自己今年牛不牛？
当然牛了。
为什么呀？
中国人的生活水平提高了嘛，社会地位提高了嘛，世界上的地位也提高了。世界上的地位也提高了。
那你觉得外国人会觉得中国人牛吗？
应该吧。
为什么呀？
今年的金融危机，他们的银行都亏损比较大，然后失业率也比较大。应该我们国家受到影响小得多了。
好，我们现在正在做采访，您觉得现在中国牛不牛？
牛啊，中国这个这么多年来经济发展飞速，然后在世界上国际上提高了自己的政治地位。去年呢举办了奥运会，这不就是鸟巢吗？我们今天就是出来看看。
中国有发展，中国人会应该觉得自己很牛吗？
我觉得应该呀，作为中国人应该觉得是一种骄傲，这更增加了我们的信心，自己的一种自信心，加强了我们国家在外面的地位。当然谦虚谨慎还是应该有的啊，因为要继续发展嘛。
伙子，麻烦您，我们再做个采访，想问您个简单的问题。
行。您
觉得现在中国牛不牛？
我觉得中国虽然不是最牛的，但确实有自己一定很深的影响力。
说的太富有哲理了，给咱解释解释。
就是有地位这方面，就说明第一，中国是5个常任理事国，然后有1票否决权，然后中国还成功的举办了奥运会，然后那个载人飞船也那个升空了，都很成功。这些事情。
那你觉得中国人自己应该怎么看待自己目前这个地位呢？
我觉得
什么心态？
第一也不能太过激，就是老觉得人家欺负你；第二也不能太软弱，就是也要挺直了腰板这样。然后我觉得还是以发展自己国内的东西为首要的。
显然你是年轻人，中国的希望，人家说啊。那你觉得未来的中国应该怎么定义？比如说你自己认为？
我觉得首先你要自强，然后人家才会尊重你，然后把科技、经济、教育这些问题都是现在其实还是处于改革阶段嘛，然后都要做得更好、更完善一些，然后国内理顺了，然后才更有资本去对外界进行谈话。
你好，麻烦您啊，我们在做个电视节目，想请教，特别想请教这小朋友，你几岁了
？9岁。
叫什么名字？
苏子欣。
阿姨有个简单问题，你觉得中国现在牛不牛？
牛。
为什么呀？
因为现在中国军事强大了，然后奥运会终于轮到中国了。
那你以后觉得中国应该是什么样啊？中国牛了以后应不应该骄傲啊？
不应该。虚心使人进步，骄傲使人落后。
那你现在要有机会跟国外的小朋友说一句话的话，你来介绍介绍中国，你觉得中国应该是什么样的呀？
中国应该是繁荣进步吧。
对国外小朋友怎么说呀？
说常来中国玩中国，欢迎你们。
Well, this is the place of pride for China during the Beijing Olympic Games. Since then, the country and her people are well known for their hospitality and ability to achieve. However, as China progresses, the need for China and the rest of the world to understand and support each other is certainly getting ever stronger.
CPPCC members have suggested that the Chinese media improve its strategy for overseas development. Our reporter Xu Zhaoxing spoke with the chairman of Hong Kong-based Phoenix Group, Liu Changle, who had these suggestions to make.
CPPCC members say that it is essential for Chinese media to understand its audience. Liu Changle is one of the advocates of this strategy. He stressed that media workers have to understand the tastes and interests of their audience.
Our news and publications should not only reflect our ideas. It would be much better if we also understood our viewers' way of thinking so as to make them interested in the information we provide.
Some members raised the same issue, saying that there is still much room for improving the publications used to promote China's image.
Many of these publications are not popular because people don't like our style of writing. If they don't want to read your book, how can they learn what you want to say?
Our TV signals reach the entire world, and we have to keep in mind that different people have different values on the same topics.
Image building is not a simple task that can be accomplished overnight. But as the media is always at the front of efforts to boost a country's image, it may well be a good idea for the industry to think over some of the members' suggestions. CCTV.
Well, some former serfs joined the next generation of Tibetans to commemorate 50 years of reforms. Xie Zeng reports from Lhasa.
Are respected senior citizens at the Drapchi community on the outskirts of Lhasa. But half a century ago, they were called serfs, the Tibetan term for slaves. 70-year-old Luosang became a serf at the age of 6. His duties then were to raise pigs and cattle for his master. But his masters never gave him enough food. Change came in March of the year Luosang turned 20, when the central government decided to carry out democratic reform in Tibet. PLA soldiers gave Luosang 2 pancakes, and he was elected chief of his community of 13 households. Dubai was born after the 1959 serf emancipation. She received a college education and is now serving in the community.
I didn't experience the dark days of the old Tibet, but the stories of the older generation have made a deep impression on me. They have had to struggle hard to get what they have today.
The Regional People's Congress has designated March the 28th as the Serf Emancipation Day.
Only the bad guys want chaos. It's a disaster for the people. All ethnic groups in Tibet are thankful and happy about the economic growth and the improvement of people's livelihood. Should there be any instability, the people would be the only losers. No one wants that.
With 50 years of development, Drapchi has developed from a piece of farmland to a large community that includes a bilingual kindergarten and exercise facilities. Their grandchildren play with modern toys such as the Teletubbies, but the former serfs also want them to know about the past. Xie Zheng Jigang, CCTV, Lhasa.
Well, seeing is believing. That's what the Communist Party leader in the Tibet Autonomous Region wants to say to the world. The secretary of the CPC Tibet Autonomous Regional Committee, Zhang Qingli, says he welcomes people from both home and abroad to visit Tibet so they can have a first-hand look at the development of the region.
We want to tell those who don't know China well and those who are hearing lies what the real Tibet is, what it was like in the past and what it is like now. Has it developed or is it lagging behind? Are we having a good life, or like some say, we don't have enough to eat? We want to show the world the real developing Tibet, and we are confident that Tibet will have an even brighter future.
A free vocational educational plan has been implemented in the Gansu Tibetan Autonomous Region in Sichuan Province. Now, the program began at the beginning of the new semester in February. Children of Tibetan farmers and herdsmen who failed to qualify for high school after junior high are eligible for this new program. Now, the children will be enrolled in vocational high schools in developed areas of the province free of charge. Now, the first group of 300 beneficiaries came from poverty-stricken families, and they'll receive a 3-year vocational education in a range of majors, including railway construction and engineering. The children will not pay any tuition, and each one will also receive a subsidy of about 1,500 yuan per year. The campaign was initiated by the Sichuan provincial government. It aims to enhance education in its Tibetan Autonomous Region. The plan is called 9+3, which means students will continue their schooling in a 3-year vocational education program after completing their 9-year compulsory education.
I want to thank the nation for the support offered to our Tibetan students who can receive job training so that we have a competitive edge in the job market. After graduation, we'll build a better tomorrow for our hometown and the country. It's not easy to receive this kind of education in rural areas. We're so happy that our children can continue schooling for free.
Well, China is joining people all over the world in marking International Women's Day. The special day of March 8th is being celebrated in many areas of society. Lina has the story.
An array of enticing products for women, including clothing, cosmetics and jewelry, are on display in fashionable shopping malls. The scale of Women's Day promotions this year far exceed previous years. Some shopping malls are even advertising a Women's Month promotion. Many women are finding it difficult to resist the temptation of such bargains, but at the same time, they do seem to be enjoying the special attention.
Shopping makes me happy. This is the best gift for me.
Flowers are another popular focus on Women's Day. A colorful display of flowers are on show in various flower markets.
We have prepared a wide range of flowers for Women's Day, especially carnations, lilies and roses.
Since Women's Day falls on Sunday this year, many women are choosing to travel with their families or friends. In the eastern city of Qingdao in Shandong province, some women are spending their week holidays taking short trips.
Tall flowers blossom in March. Some of my family members like taking pictures, so I like to take my mom and other family members on a fun short trip.
For those who don't like to stray too far from the city, there is also entertainment close to home. Women in Beijing can choose to attend a specially designed crosstalk performance for women. The show is a new experience for many of the women and a refreshing way to spend their special day. Lina, CCTV.
China's first rehabilitation center for breast cancer patients has been established in Tianjin. The center offers services that take care of patients' mental and physical well-being. Meng Wei from Tianjin has this story.
65-year-old Di Baohua is a breast cancer patient who has recovered successfully through treatment at the center. After surgery in 2007, Li visited the center twice a week for rehabilitation.
I was very depressed when I was diagnosed. I felt that life was meaningless and lost faith in life. Doctors at the rehabilitation center have helped me to receive restoration training while restoring my confidence and courage to live.
The center is more than just a place for patients to undergo rehabilitation. It also offers them opportunities to share their innermost feelings. And the patients often have outdoor activities.
First, we give them suggestions from the perspective of medical care. Secondly, we take them in as our family members and care about the details of their everyday lives.
Tianjin Tumor Hospital established the Asian Breast Cancer Center in 2003. In 2008, it further expanded as China's first rehabilitation center for breast cancer patients. Nearly 100 breast cancer patients are in this group currently receiving care. The treatment includes classes once a month and psychological counseling from specialists.
Overseas Chinese women in the Netherlands are celebrating Women's Day in a special way. They've set up a fund to sponsor special education for disabled children in China. Now, so far, over 20 women have donated more than 11,000 euros as their initial contribution to the fund, and they're hoping that their efforts will encourage others to take part and donate as well. Now, prior to setting up this fund, they had already given 100,000 yuan since 2007 to sponsor special education in Huangguang in Hebei province in central China.
Our aim is to raise money every year to help children at a special education school in Huanggang.
All of us here have our own children, so we want to donate money to help children in need back in the motherland.
Coming up on NewsHour, the U.S. President challenges Americans to search for great opportunity amidst the dark days of this economic downturn. And Russia says a new strategic arms reduction treaty with the U.S. should cover delivery systems for nuclear warheads.
China will not accept a recession. Social stability tops the agenda. While liberal capitalism is questioned, the financial crisis strengthens China's global position. But will the Chinese response be dictated by its own domestic needs? Lawmakers and political advisors converge in Beijing to discuss and debate in their annual plenums. Please stay tuned for our daily panel discussion, Voices and Votes, only on CCTV International between March the 3rd and the 13th.
China's annual political session in March will set the policies as the country faces the global economic slowdown.
Businessmen from over
We probe the economic issues.
CPC deputies and CPPCC
profile people who make a difference.
Proposals on the subject
Talk
of
to
farming,
advisors with a vision.
Agriculture,
the functions of the CPPCC,
and bring you the daily focus. Join CCTV's reporters for an examination of China's political agenda, only on CCTV International.
Welcome back. U.S. President Barack Obama has challenged his country to see its difficult time as a chance to discover great opportunity in the midst of crisis. Now, Obama made the remark during his weekly radio and video address broadcast on Saturday. David Rathbun with the latest.
The work week ended with more bad news. A new report showed 651,000 more Americans losing their jobs and an unemployment rate climbing to 8.1%. That's the highest rate of people out of work in more than 25 years. Meanwhile, the recession is continuing to put enormous pressures on families and industries. Obama offered hope and encouragement amid the challenges many Americans are experiencing in the early months of his presidency.
The unemployment rate has now surpassed 8%, the highest rate in a quarter century. These aren't just statistics, but hardships experienced personally by millions of Americans who no longer know how they'll pay their bills or make their mortgage or raise their families. From the day I took office, I knew that solving this crisis would not be easy, nor would it happen overnight, and we will continue to face difficult days in the months ahead. But I also believe that we will get through this, that if we act swiftly and boldly and responsibly, the United States of America will emerge stronger and more prosperous than it was before. Of course, like every family going...
Obama's goal was to reassure the country that he and his team are taking specific steps to create jobs in the short term, and that they are also beginning to address huge issues such as health care. Economists predict the unemployment rate will continue to climb. Some predict it could even hit 9% or higher this year. The U.S. economy contracted at a staggering 6.2% in the final 3 months of 2008. Analysts say the U.S. economy will likely continue shrinking during the first 6 months of this year. David Rathbun, CCTV.
U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton says President Barack Obama is planning to visit Turkey in the near future, and that would make the Muslim nation one of the first foreign visits of his presidency. Clinton made the remark during a joint news conference in Ankara with Turkish Foreign Minister Ali Babakan on Saturday. Now, Turkey is seen as a key U.S. ally that could potentially help to resolve various U.S. foreign policy problems. Among those, redeploying the U.S. military from Iraq, blocking Iran's nuclear ambitions, and turning around the war in Afghanistan. Now, speaking about Syria, Clinton said that talks were underway between 2 U.S. representatives and Syrian officials in Damascus.
We have 2 representatives of the United States government in Damascus today meeting with the Syrians. We are just at the beginning of exploring the issues that we must discuss between us, and no decisions have been made. We'll wait to hear back from our 2 representatives, and we will consult further. So we have not decided on any next steps.
Russia has called for a follow-up to the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty with the United States. The current treaty, known as START 1, expires at the end of this year, and Russia's foreign minister says his country wants the new treaty to be broader and cover delivery systems for strategic nuclear warheads. Pei Zhen has more.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov addressed the UN-sponsored disarmament conference on Saturday. He noted a new version of the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, or START 2, should not be limited only to nuclear warheads, but should also cover strategic delivery systems.
A future agreement should be legally binding. It is of no less importance that the agreement should be forward-looking and should limit not only warheads but also strategic delivery vehicles, meaning intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and heavy bombers.
Lavrov also urged Washington to take Moscow's security concerns into account when it reviews plans to deploy a missile defense shield in Eastern Europe. During a meeting in Geneva on Friday, the Russian foreign minister and his U.S. counterpart, Hillary Clinton, agreed to rebuild strained ties, planning to reach an agreement on nuclear weapon controls by the end of this year. Clinton hopes that both sides will be able to present the plan to their respective presidents before the G20 summit in London this April, where Barack Obama and Dmitry Medvedev are scheduled to meet face-to-face for the first time. CCTV.
Afghan President Hamid Karzai says he accepts the recent decision by his country's election commission to hold presidential elections on August 20th. That's 3 months after the election date stipulated by the Constitution. Now, according to the Afghan Constitution, Karzai's presidential term should end on May 21st. The Constitution says the presidential election should be held 30 to 60 days before that. But the Afghan Election Commission postponed the date until August, citing security issues, bad spring weather, and a lack of funds for the distribution of ballots. An August vote would leave a 3-month gap between when the Constitution says the president's term should end and the new election. And Karzai says he'll extend his term to fill that gap. But opposition leaders oppose this.
I would like to complete, in my mind, the task that I have towards further improvement in Afghanistan, towards better relations with the world and with the neighbors, towards the prosperity of the Afghan people. But I will do that only if I can be a factor of stability in Afghanistan, and if I can ensure stability in Afghanistan.
Well, staying in Afghanistan, angry Afghan demonstrators have blocked the path of a U.S. military convoy. They were protesting a deadly U.S. overnight raid that killed 4 Afghans. Now, several hundred Afghan demonstrators gathered in the eastern city of Khost on Saturday. They threw rocks at the U.S. convoy, burned tires, and shouted "Death to America." But there were no direct clashes between the demonstrators and the convoy. Afghan officials say the demonstrators were condemning an early morning raid that left 4 civilians dead and wounded 2 others. The U.S. said the people killed were linked to a militant network. U.S. forces also said that they had discovered weapons, explosives, and materials to make bombs during the raid. Well, these stories and more just ahead on NewsHour. China's star hurdler Liu Shang heads back to Shanghai after Achilles surgery in the United States. And the stage is set for Olympic champion Lin Dan to compete in the finals of the All England Badminton Championship.
Au cours de ma carrière, j'ai visité des centaines de châteaux dans le monde entier, mais le château Shangyu AFIB Global est le château de classe mondiale qui me tient le plus à cœur. Ces vins sont mes vins préférés.
Professional recommendation by World Master of Wine, Chateau Shangyu AFIB, Global Beijing.
Draft beer. Refresh your life.
CCTV Sports and Entertainment, exclusive advertising agency of CCTV Now.
Well, Jennifer joins us now with all the latest sports news. What do you have for us?
Hi, Annie. We're going to start with a bit of athletics news. We usually start with football, but we'll get to that later on. China's hurdling sensation Liu Shang has quickly recovered from his foot surgery in the United States and is now heading back home. He will arrive in his hometown of Shanghai on Sunday. Liu Shang has been in Houston for more than 3 months. He had surgery on his Achilles injury and remained in the States to recover. The 2004 Olympic champion will continue his road to recovery in Shanghai. Accompanied by his coach Sun Haiping, Liu Shang left Houston for Shanghai on Saturday night. Turning to tennis now and all the latest action from the Davis Cup. Spain took a 2-1 lead over Serbia in the World Group first-round tie on Saturday. David Ferrer began defending Spain's title in the opening rubber against Novak Djokovic. The world number 12 took the opening set 6-3. A drilled forehand down the line by Ferrer gave Spain a 2-0 lead. In the third set, Djokovic fought his way back from 3-1 down to level at 3-all and then worked his way to set points in the 12th game. Ferrer saved both of them, forcing the match into tiebreak. Ferrer won 5 points in a row. After 2 hours and 49 minutes, he finally won the match 6-3, 6-3, 7-6. Well, the second singles rubber saw world number one Rafael Nadal go against Janko Tipsarevic. The Australian Open champion swept away his opponent in the opening set 6-1. He then took the second set to love and broke the 47th ranked Serb 7 times throughout the match. Nadal won 10 games in a row at one stage and put the Spaniards on course for victory by taking the match 6-1, 6-love, 6-2 in just 96 minutes. But Serbia kept the clay court tie alive when Viktor Troicki and Nenad Zemlinovic beat Feliciano Lopez and Tommy Robredo 7-6, 6-4, 7-6 in the doubles rubber. Well, Olympic champion Ling Dan is through to the final of the All England Badminton Championships. China's Super Dan will meet world number one Lee Chong-wei from Malaysia in the final clash. Seated second here, Ling Dan was up against compatriot and defending champion Chen Jing. Ling dominated the first game 21-12 before Chen retired with a side injury 11-6 down in the second game. In another match, Lee Chong-wei raced to his first All-England final with a straight sets victory against Tafiq Hidayat. Hidayat swept from 4-4 in the opening game to 11-4. From that point on, Hidayat was generally on the back foot. Lee wrapped up the game in 33 minutes. In the women's event, world number one and defending champion Tine Rasmussen of Denmark survived 2 match points to battle past unseeded Chinese player Zhang Yanjiao 22-24, 25-23, and 21-15. And turning now to English football, Manchester United have cruised into the semi-finals of the FA Cup. They crushed Fulham 4-0 on Saturday. In the 20th minute, Wayne Rooney headed on a Michael Carrick corner and the diminutive Carlos Tevez was able to knot it in at the far post. Well, 15 minutes later, Tevez made it 2-0. The 25-year-old Argentine international scored with a fine right-footed shot. And United continued to dominate the second half. Rooney curled the ball beyond Mark Schwarzer from the corner of the Fulham box, giving them their third goal in the 50th minute. Then 9 minutes from time, Park Ji-sung pounced on a terrible crossfield pass from Fulham substitute Zoltan Guerra to make it 4-0. That's how the match ended. United have now reached the semi-finals of the FA Cup for a record 26th time. Well, Chelsea are also through to the semi-finals of the FA Cup after their 2-0 victory at Championship side Coventry City. The Londoners' side began brightly. Didier Drogba flashed a shot just wide of Kareem Westwood's post inside 2 minutes. Chelsea continued to dominate the proceedings and scored again on 72 minutes after a rare foray forward by the Sky Blues. Drogba's pass found Ricardo Quaresma and the former Inter Milan winger set up Brazilian defender Alex for a simple finish. That's going to do it for this update. Catch a full edition of Sports Scene, 4:15 this afternoon, Beijing time. Annie, back to you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Well, we didn't start with sports, we didn't start with football, but we ended with football. And that's all for this edition of NewsHour. I'm Annie from Beijing. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.